Welcome to the Whole Leader podcast, a space for leaders seeking something deeper than success. I'm Richard Britton. After years of building businesses, I found myself looking for something more meaningful than growth alone. This podcast invites you to explore the work of leading in a complex world, with conversations that delve into the inner and outer work of presence, connection, creativity, and human-centered leadership. Thank you for joining. My guest today is someone whose story is as powerful as it is inspiring. Scarlett Allen-Horton is a business leader, entrepreneur, and a speaker who's built success on a foundation of resilience, purpose, and grit. From leaving home at 16 and becoming a mother when she was young, to reaching the final of The Apprentice and founding her own executive search firm, she's someone who's defied the odds while staying true to her values. Scarlett, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. What an introduction. Do we do it? Woo! I'm doing my own sound effects. Sorry, Richard.
Scarlett, you've walked a remarkable path.
Thank you.
Before we dive into that journey, I'd love to ask, what would you say is the contributional moment that you feel proudest of?
Just the one singular moment that I feel the proudest of. I don't know if I can do one single moment, but the two things that sprung to mind was how particularly my eldest daughter actually, how I see her talk now as a young adult. And I think that when we're having children, we don't necessarily think when we're having them about how they'll be as adults. And I sort of watch how she speaks and hopefully what I've poured into her and the way she thinks about things. And it makes me emotional actually, but it makes me extremely proud.
It's a really beautiful answer.
That's the truth,
Yeah.
you know. I think that one and the other singular one was, and it probably sounds a little bit obvious, but it isn't, was actually being on the final of The Apprentice, not being on the final, which is amazing. I'm very grateful. But actually there was, they do like a video pop afterwards, you know, where they're like, How did you find it, Scarlett? All of that. And I'd gone and I'd done this pitch and I was talking about how passionate I am about having women sitting in these real decision-making roles and ethnic minorities sitting in these decision-making roles and having opportunities for everyone. That's the point. And I went up and I'd kind of delivered it and I sort of saw Lord Sugar and he was going, yeah, okay. And there was the audience and I thought, I'm so passionate about this. Yeah. And I remember the guy saying, how do you feel? And I literally felt like I was speaking for like the whole of humanity. I was like, I feel like I'm speaking for every woman that stood before.
Wonderful.
And that wasn't the case. Yeah. But it really felt like a defining moment, I think, for me in terms of my purpose.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what I've brought into business.
It really does sound like in that moment you were talking about what mattered the most to you. It really came out.
I think a lived experience and trying to make impact on the back of that. Yes. So, yeah.
And maybe now we could go right back to the beginning and you could talk to us about what your childhood was like and what kind of environment you grew up in.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I didn't know we were going way back, Richard. Okay, so I was brought up by my mum, single, solo parent, I think is what the kids call it these days, solo parent household. And my mum was actually in the care system. So my mum and aunt had been in the care system. So we sort of heard a lot about the care system actually in a favourable way on the whole. So there wasn't any extended family. So we didn't sort of have grandparents or uncles or aunts. We just had my mum and my aunt, which was normal to us. But I recognise now that's probably not everybody's growing up. And my mum and my aunt brought up all of us children, some of which were also fostered because parents had died along the way. So I was brought up with myself and my two uncles as well, who my mum fostered. And they were like 10 and 12 years older than me. And then my dad wasn't present. He was estranged. He's Pakistani. So there's different kind of cultures at play as well. And it was a very hardworking household. Mum's very hardworking, very loving household. Definitely knew there was a scarcity of money, or money was definitely a big thing. I was definitely aware of that. But I also knew that I needed to work hard and I could make things happen. And I definitely had that put into me and I believed it wholeheartedly as well.
And you must have seen your mum display all sorts of strengths and overcome all sorts of struggles as well.
Definitely.
And what did you learn through that about the strengths that I guess you now bring to life yourself?
Yeah. So I never. Let me think. So definitely hard work, 100%.
Yes.
I always felt like she could overcome anything. And she was very, very strong, as she still is, very strong, but also took no sort of BS. So she was, definitely brought us up in that way. But she definitely spoke into us. Like, even though we could see the struggles, I knew that it was possible. Like, I definitely believed we could go on and be and do anything. Now, how we were going to do that is a bit of a different sort of scenario, but I did believe that.
Yeah.
But what I was cheeky. So my cousins, so I was brought up with all my cousins, like brothers and sisters, and a lot of them sort of followed the system a lot more. They went on to college, they did well, they went to unis, they've got great careers, super, super proud. And we've, all done this in very different circumstances, difficult circumstances. But I was cheeky. I was cheeky at home and I was cheeky at school.
So you were cheeky and you got yourself into trouble. You're probably outspoken. So tell us a bit about what school was like then for you. How was your school?
I love primary school. I was like what are they called? The house captain and the prefect.
Yeah, so you had the badges.
Listen, I was loving primary school. But senior school was okay. I didn't love it, if I'm totally honest with you.
Yeah.
It was okay. Yeah. And I got to a point where I started calling the teachers by their first name.
Okay.
So
you'd reached a level with them.
You can't do that.
No. And somewhere in amongst all that, your ambition must have been sparked at some
100%.
point. So when did you realise that you had this ambition to do more and to go places?
Always, from day dot. Yeah, I definitely. A lot of our childhood was definitely acutely aware of bills, acutely aware that there wasn't money for certain things. I remember very, very clearly I'd add up the shopping list every single week. Like I knew the milk was 64 pence. Like I'd have the calculator out and we'd add it up exactly. Yeah. My mum was excellent with money management actually, but then other members of the family weren't. So I was definitely around different things. Yeah. But my comparison was always care and other elements that were going on in the family. So I knew that I knew we had great consistency and there was love and care. So that was amazing. Yeah. But the ambition, I can speak for me and probably some of my cousins, is there for all of us from day dot. Like I remember pitching to the milkman, who was my cousin's baby sitter's husband, to be his assistant. And I must have been about 13.
Really?
Yeah. So I knew that I need to make money. I would like to help my mum. I'd like to help the family. Like it's my responsibility. It wasn't my responsibility, of course, but I had that sort of within me. And I knew that I could do it. There's something in me that knew I could absolutely do it. Yeah. And I was a competitive swimmer. So I'd done a lot of things that I put my mind to. Wasn't necessarily the best, but I know I was very good at. So I started to swim locally in, local Birmingham inner city swimming pool, and I was very good. So then I got into a swimming club. So I was like, oh, okay. Then I started swimming for the county. Then I started swimming with the Youth England girls. Yes. Then I did gymnastics, the same thing. Then I did synchronised swimming. So I was used to, if I could put my mind to it, I could do well, but I knew it took that kind of mindset. And that's what I brought then into everything else and into the workplace.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you'd already mentioned before about it's the things that we live and the things that we do that kind of create, experiences, and doing that sport to a high level must have given you the confidence to go on and think I can. Yeah, I think it's a combination, actually, if I'm honest, of probably what I'd seen, what had been spoken into me, what I'd shown myself, but it was definitely circumstantial as well. Because when I, was too cheeky at home and too cheeky at school and ended up in youth supported accommodation at 16, which is what you refer to, I knew at that point, okay, I'm 16 and I need to outwork my circumstances. And that has been the theme of my life, actually, Richard. To this point, I'm still of that mindset of almost thinking, I don't know if I can't eat, and you can't eat, then you are really hungry, like you are really driven and I say starving, and I mean it not just in the physical sense, but I mean in every single sense. The motivation levels are never higher. And when that occurred and you left home at 16, was that sort of an active decision or set of decisions that took you to that point, or was it something that kind of more came out of the blue when it happened for you?
I like to take accountability. I think taking accountability is really important. And I think I've probably just driven my mum past a certain point. And actually, I've got teenage daughters now. I can understand it. Driven her past a certain point, and she says, okay, if you think you could just live your life and do what you want to do, off you go then and go and do it. And I'd gotten to that sort of point. So I thought, okay then, off I'll go, you know. And I remember, you know, and that's how I know my mindset was. Because if I look at my daughter now, she's going to be 18, she'd be like, oh my God, Mum, no. Whereas I was like, I'm going to find some IKEA pots. I'm going to find the money to buy IKEA saucepans. And I was thinking that at 16, how can I get the money for IKEA saucepans? Because I'm going to have them in my flat. And that was my honest mindset, you know. So it was definitely my actions, and probably my mum being frustrated with me for sure, but definitely also driven by me, I'd say at that point. And you know, led to lots of different circumstances. But actually, I'm grateful that has been my journey, because it's led me to here.
And in those early days, in that early time, you must have been learning lessons about yourself thick and fast. Can you remember what any of those were, what you were learning about yourself that sort of first day after you'd left, and then you were realising you were going to have to fend for yourself and you didn't have anything at all? What sort of things were you learning through that process?
I was learning that I always knew I was very, very resilient. And I was with my friend at the time, and I couldn't get back in the house because I was too late coming home, basically, is what happened. And I remember, my mum won't be happy with me telling this story, but I remember me having little pebbles that were on the road, me and my friend, and throwing them at the window to say, Mum, let me in the house. And one of those pebbles smashed the window.
Right.
Now, that was going to be a nightmare situation. And we had these little shoes on at the time that were in fashion. And me and my friend ran so fast up the road, the shoes were still on the road. But I also remember walking back down thinking, how can I resolve this? How can I get the money for the window, for my mum's window, which I never did get. But how can I get it? But I also remember thinking, like feeling quite lighthearted about it, if I'm honest, and thinking, okay, so I'm going to sort this out. And that has been the constant theme. It's like, I'm going to be able to sort this out. I'm going to work it out. I know there's a way.
So bringing resilience, knowing that you'll find a way to win in the end.
Yeah.
And
try.
Yeah. and then I guess it wasn't long after that you became a mum when you were 19.
Yeah. I was pregnant at
and
19,
that brings a different set of pressures and expectations, as well as the joy that comes with it.
Yeah.
How did becoming a parent sort of change the way you saw yourself and I guess in your role in life? Because, you know, some of the not quite so carefree at that point.
Yeah. So I was pregnant at 19, so I had my eldest daughter at 20.
Right.
And my second daughter at 23 or 24, I think. I think because by that point I'd already been out of home at 16, I felt like an adult. I look back now and realise not adults at all, far from adulthood. And it was difficult. You know, it's difficult. I've loved being a mum. I love being a businesswoman. I love being a mum. And I feel like that's not a conversation that's always discussed very often. I think often, I felt anyway, that only now in these more recent years, I feel really comfortable saying that. And I lead with authenticity, very much so now. But my life was completely different. So I had the girls, had my eldest daughter, and just loved being a mum. But if anything, I knew the stakes were even higher, because now not only did I need to be uber successful and like the CEO of the world, not that, but you know, like that huge ambition. I've now got a child and then another child.
Responsibility.
The responsibility was huge, and that perfectionism that I try to bring really into every element of my life is a huge pressure as well. So I want to be the best mom, and obviously some days you're the best mum and some days you're not, right? So I want to be the best mum that I can be. I want to be present, but I also want to be, you know, a beast in business, or, you know, I want to do really, really well in the world of recruitment. And the combination of those things is very, very difficult. Yeah. And we lived a pretty private life. You know, I lived a very private life, very, very controlling relationship that I was in for quite a long time with their father at that point. So we lived a life where curtains were closed, where there wasn't friends, there wasn't necessarily family around. It was a cocoon.
Must have felt very isolated.
Yeah, massively isolating, yeah. And there's lots of different reasons, and there's some accountability in there for me as well, I think, but there's lots of different reasons for that. But it actually made the bond with me and my daughters extremely, extremely strong, because we had each other. Yeah. And we got to work it out.
Yes. And you have a have a set of very clear views on motherhood and work together. How do you view how the way our culture treats working mums today?
I think now it's gotten a bit better. It's gotten a lot better. And, it's working mums and parents. I think it's parents in general. But things have changed. I think, firstly, leadership has evolved in terms of ages and just there being more of a balance at home, just culturally. That feels like it's so much more encouraged. It just wasn't. It was just different, right? But I remember going into a big recruitment, my first kind of corporate recruitment workplace. And I was acutely aware that my circumstances were completely different to my peers. Not only did I look different, I was female, I was, biracial. There was a lot of males, a lot of white males that had come from uni, great unis, got great degrees. I hadn't got that. I'd just come out of youth-supported accommodation. So I'd come from what was almost a care system to some degree, actually.
Yeah.
So I'd come out of that, I'd gone into the world of work, and I knew the circumstances were completely different. But I felt I couldn't in any way be my authentic self because I needed to fit in. So I certainly couldn't talk about my home circumstances because I just thought, that won't enable me to be the best achiever, and they won't like me, or I won't fit in.
You'll be judged.
I'll be judged.
Yeah.
And I would have been judged.
Yeah,
the plain truth of it is I would have been judged. Yeah. And so what I did was I just didn't say that I had children. It took over a year for me to say that I've got openly be talking about that I've got children, because I thought they just wouldn't take me seriously.
That must have been extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Trying to sort of lead two lives at the same time. And what was it that kept you going at that point when you were being stretched by the work and having to have this other self at work and then at home as well? You're clearly very driven. What was keeping you going?
I got to feed my children.
Yeah.
That is the plain truth of it. Yeah. I've got to feed my children, and I want to make sure that, I had different friends that I was around and been around for a long time, and we'd had the same circumstances. And I could just see, I understood, if I looked at my life, and I'd had lots of support growing up, and I'd seen lots of great things as well around me. But if I looked at my life, I understood statistically what that looked like and where I was. I understood what kind of statistic I was. And I was avidly determined to change that statistic. I still am. And that's why I talk about it. I still am. And I also knew, now it's not just for me, so I need to outwork these circumstances, and I'm made of this stuff and I need to change it. I knew that I've got these 2 daughters of mine as well, wonderful women of colour, young women of colour, and they're watching my every step. And I want to not just open those pathways and doors for them, or those opportunities, but I want to lead by example.
Role model it for them.
Yeah. So I knew that I had this, not just passion, but responsibility.
Yeah.
And on top of that, no one's going to help us. If I couldn't feed the children or pay the rent, that was what it was.
And something's happened where that role modelling and taking responsibility to help your own daughters has become sort of a mission to take responsibility for so many more people as well.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think it's only when I think it's, is it To Kill a Mockingbird, the quote, please, I'm missaying it here, but something along the lines of, until you've been in the skin of someone, the fabric of someone's skin, and you've kind of moved around in it a little bit, you just don't understand. And that's what I always think. I always think, we only understand our own journeys. You understand your journey. I couldn't really understand it to a degree, and vice versa.
Yeah,
we can have compassion and understand each other to a degree, but you're just not until we've been in the fabric of. And I think because I'd had 2 lives, I think you touched on that so beautifully, actually. There's this life of, young mom, their father ends up going to prison. So we've got all of police criminal things going on that had nothing to do with me, but all that's going on in the background. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, very, very, very controlling relationships. I'm trying to understand that. I'm trying to navigate my way out of that. I want the best for my children, all of these things. And then high achiever at work. And the 2 don't normally correlate. And that's why I'm really passionate about talking about it and saying, no, if you can trust me, you can come from there, but you can absolutely do this because that's my story.
And the story that I'm hearing sounds like one that must have created an extra layer of stress for you at a time which was really, really difficult with your partner going to prison, and you were sort of trying to keep up appearances. That's an extra on top of the stress of being, a mum on your own again, and the difficulties in your relationship and everything that was happening there. To be going to work and appearing to be, everything's fine is another layer of stress. So you're sort of taking the situation that lots of people have of trying to juggle a home life and a work life to an entirely
it's
new
a different
level.
stratosphere.
Yeah,
it's a different stratosphere. And you're trying to understand it. And this is where I think for me, even the inclusion comes into it and the belonging comes into it, because I'm understanding, okay, these are my circumstances. How do I change those? Okay, I'm different here, but how do I excel here? How can I use that as a strength? How can I use that to stand out? But then I'm also trying to understand what's happened there. And I can see a system that's failed, in my opinion, actually, my children's dad as well. Yeah. And I can see judgment there that's brought on a different element of the system. So I'm looking at the whole thing and thinking, there's got to be change here. Yeah. There's got to be accountability, but there's got to be change. And how can I do that? And I've got all of this going on whilst I'm so passionate about business. I want to work out, how do I make money? How do I drive revenue? How do I build impact? Then that comes later because of the experience that I've had.
Yeah. And we'll definitely come to that. I'm looking forward to hearing all about that. I suppose from what you just said, I'd like to ask what you learnt about sort of society and leadership at that point. You were talking about being failed by society and lots of leaders in lots of different places. What did you learn from that?
Two probably different extremes, actually. So I was in sort of my first, not recruitment job, but I did a call centre job, and I ended up being the top performer. So I ended up getting a management secondment there at 19, right? Yeah. And I took over the team that I had been on. Well, a lot of those people had been there for years and years, and some of them are 50 years older than me. So that is a real launch into leadership.
Sure, it certainly is.
So it really, really was. Yeah. But what I also found out was that I was pregnant. So I thought at that time, right, okay, I've got this amazing opportunity. I'm already, again, different in a different way. I've got to do really, really well. Now I'm pregnant. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to tell anybody. And I waited till I was 6 months pregnant. In hindsight, that's not the way. But I waited till I was 6 months pregnant to tell my boss at the time. And I thought, I'm going to have to tell him, because at this point you can kind of see, and he's going to need to bring somebody in. And so, and that's what I did. And it was received so positively that I thought, why had I been carrying that weight and pressure? Yeah. Where had that come from? I just didn't feel that would be a positive news. And it was. So I had that experience. Then I also had a different experience. I was working at this, at a wonderful, I have to say, big global recruitment business. A lot of years, had a lot of opportunity there, opened up lots of divisions, launched ED&I stuff and women in business programs and all sorts of amazing things. But I also asked for flexible working. So I'd learnt what this thing was called flexible working. And I'd already been there for about 3 or 4 years, already a top performer year on year. And I thought, right, okay, I really want to do a school run on the Friday with my daughters. That's what I really want to do. And my mum was wonderful, taking them back and forth to school for me. I thought, I really, it's always about the girls, always about the girls. And I put in this flexible working application, and they'd never had one before.
Right, that doesn't surprise me, but
they'd never had one before.
Yeah,
and that's that just wasn't the dynamic of the workplace. I'm sure that's completely changed now, but they'd never had one. Yeah. So they didn't really know what to do with it. So okay, no problem. Yeah, we'll look at it. So, and end up going back and forth. And 6 weeks later, I remember the director at the time, again, a great guy. And he was like, I'm really pleased, Scarlett. Yes, we're happy to approve it. So I was like, oh my gosh, amazing. What does that mean? And it meant that I could have a lunch break for 30 minutes on a Friday. Yeah. Right. Instead of an hour. And I knew at that point, and it's actually from naivety. It's not from a place of not trying to help. No. And that's why it's so important that different voices and different experiences are present. Yeah. And I thought at that point, no, I've got to make change. And that's what led me actually to set up the business. So it's all been super, super positive. Yeah. But those are the things that have kind of shaped my experience and my experience of motherhood in the workplace or parenthood in the workplace. Yeah.
And you're part of making that change happen.
Thank you.
And it does sound like a real journey. sort of before we move on to, I suppose, where your career went next, maybe if you think back to that younger self of yours doing those jobs and the sort of experiences that you were having, what might you have said now to yourself then, which you didn't know at the time?
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. Because I couldn't imagine. I always had big visions and I always felt like anything was possible. But I don't know, I could have genuinely imagined that I'd be doing the things that I'm doing now, even sitting on this podcast speaking to you because as we're talking, I'm flashing back to different things because we're talking about things from a long time ago, and I'm flashing back to my youth supported accommodation flat. I don't know that I understood the opportunities that were possible. Because if you don't see something, this is why the milk round was really good. And I say this to my daughters, doing that milk round enabled me to see some houses that were only 20-minute drive up the road. I didn't realise people lived like that. And I'm actually going to a party there this Saturday, funnily enough, same area, and we could live there if we wanted to. And it enabled me to see it. And I remember going down with the milk, it's 3:00 in the morning with the milkman, putting the milk at the doors, thinking, I'm going to have a house like this. I am going to have a house like this when I'm older. I didn't realise that even existed in England or in Birmingham. I didn't realise, but it does.
Sometimes it's seeing things from a new perspective and being able to reframe things that just... it's important to us all, isn't it? Because you can get very stuck in one place and not understand, other destinations, other ways of doing things, which will be a neat point of conversation when we're talking about Edie and I in a little bit. So then there was a sort of, I suppose, a turning point for you, and I'm talking about The Apprentice.
Yeah.
When you first applied to do that, at that point you'd have had no idea that you were going to get to the final and that was going to be a launch pad for you in the way that it was. But what was it that what were you looking for? What were you seeking? What was the exposure you were trying to get? What sort of change were you trying to bring about through that process? Honestly,
probably none. There was probably no exposure I was trying to get. Right. I lived a really private life. We'd come out of the houses with the now we're having windows that are open. I've still got like 2 friends, super private, wouldn't speak to really very many people outside unless I know you. Very, very private, unless it's to do with my children or work or my mum. That was it. For a long time, up until probably 10 years ago. So it's a real change. Yeah, absolutely. And I applied for The Apprentice probably now about 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Maybe 5.5, 6 years ago, it could be now, but about 5 years ago. Yeah. And what the reason and why really was by that point I'd got the business. I'd got Harper Fox Partners, so I'd launched that. It was going well. It was me and one other, and my mum did some hours for us. She was the first employee, as it were. And I was sitting late at my kitchen table working, and it was coming towards 11 o'clock, and I had the TV on in the background and the girls were in bed. And I saw Lord Sugar come on the TV and say, apply now, with the hand.
With the pointy finger.
With the hand, And I'd, of course, watched it over the years and looked at like Sadia and Tim in awe and thought, oh my gosh, always had this raging ambition and was like, oh my gosh. And then, of course, it was, you can be my next business partner. And it just clicked and I thought, I've got a business. For the first time I thought, I've got a business. And then I thought, no one's going to tell me not to do this. I can't do it. No, I was used to so many restrictions and so much control, and I can do it. So I thought, this will be fun. Why don't I just apply and just see if I can get to the next round? There was no more thought than that, genuinely. And I applied, literally quick online form. It was 10 minutes. It was the closing deadline was 11. Just did it and whizzed it off. And I got to the next round. I thought, that's brilliant. I'm going to go to the next round in Birmingham. This is just good. I was just thinking, this is good to build my confidence. That's what I was thinking. I was coming from a place of like decimated confidence, but knew I was very good at work and knew I was a good mom. But me personally, if you asked me much about Scarlett, I wouldn't have been able to tell you.
You'd had a hard time and this was an opportunity for you just to try something different.
Try and build my confidence. And that probably is surprising almost for people. They're like, what? But that is, I think when you're in controlling relationships, you lose your sense of self. You just don't even know what food you like. Like that is to that kind of degree is what I'm talking. So it's like, so it was literally just a building process. So I just thought, okay, that's amazing. I'm going to go. And I went in there and then I got through the next round and I got through the next round and I got through the next round. And I kept thinking, gosh, and And I'd never even left my children overnight. So I wasn't thinking I was going to be leaving my children for a number of weeks, which is what it was. And I got through to the end and they said, yeah, Scarlett, we'd really like you to come on the show, but we don't know if you can because of your circumstances. We don't want there to be any issues. So we're going to need to get permission from your ex-partner's, my children's dad's parole, and make sure everything's going to be okay if you were to kind of come out openly. And at that point, I just thought, I still might not be able to do something again.
Yeah.
There's still impacts. And it all came back absolutely fine, and he was supportive, which was wonderful, and it all came back absolutely fine. But I didn't know until a few days of being able to go in there. So I hadn't had the weeks of preparation that maybe some of the other candidates had. You know, they're worrying what dresses to put on.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I don't even know if I can do it. And then I've got to make sure I've got money for the children whilst the business is running, all the normal stuff, right?
So all of the stuff you talked about before,
Yeah.
when you were a working mum, trying to hold down a complicated home life,
Yeah.
and be a top performer at work, was sort of coming back to you again here.
Was back.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking to myself, my worlds are about to collide, because I'm used to being Scarlett in the workplace, you know, get my head down, do well, smiling, lovely, you know, but like that. Well, now my personal life's about to come out, and I've got a business as well. So and I've got children to consider in their lives. They're at school, their friends. So there's a lot to consider, you know. But ultimately, what happened was they were like, no, we're happy to continue forward. And I have very strong faith. And I just thought, if I've been given this opportunity, it's for a reason, and I'm going to take it. And I think the combination, had I have just put it on the table without those elements at play, maybe I would have taken it, maybe I wouldn't. I couldn't tell you truthfully. I might have said no. It might have been too overwhelming for me. I had no social media. I had nothing like that at all. All of that has changed in the last 5 years. So it's been a real change, and I'm very grateful. The most thing I'm most grateful for, aside from the investment and aside from the platform and to talk about the things that I'm passionate about, which I'm very grateful, is actually that I can talk very authentically. And that is a beautiful thing, because it did all come out. So then, well, here I am now, and we talk and we stand in it. And that is really powerful for me personally.
Amazing story, and I'm glad you got to the topic of authenticity, because that's obviously important in the work that you do. But as you were telling that story, you could hear different pieces of your life coming together, and then there was basically nowhere to go, because you're on TV now, and all of those bits come together.
Like,
and you talk about authenticity, and you know, not having to have this full self at work versus being a parent, and so that was put upon you in that process, really.
It was.
Can you tell me just a little bit about that kind of learning experience when you were on The Apprentice and all of those things were coming together all at once?
Yeah, it was very overwhelming. And I think because and don't get me wrong, The Apprentice is really hard. Like, I would encourage anyone to go on The Apprentice. But honestly, you're up from 3 a.m, you're still working till 10 p.m. It is crazy pressure. Like,
3 a.m. till 10 p.m?
Honestly, crazy pressure. You know, the cameras are coming into the room. Like, it is a long, long, long day. It's a hard show. You don't know what time it is. You don't know what day it is. You don't know what date it is. You don't know what location you are. So that's why people can sometimes come across like, huh? As if they don't know that. When you haven't got a watch on, you haven't got a phone, and you don't even know what day it is, you do come out with some silly things. Like, that's the reality. So I have full respect for anyone that's done the show. It's a hard show. But that said, for me, of course, now my kind of high functioning self, I'm lashing up every task. I am loving it. Next task, oh my gosh, yep. I'll lead, I'll do this. I'm loving it. And what I noticed around me was that some of the other candidates, of whom I have full respect for, are, you know, upset or really kind of breaking down in parts of the process. And compared to the life that I'd lived, if I'm totally honest, I thought, my children are being looked after by my mom for the first time. I've not got children that I'm constantly looking after. I've got to cook or clean because the food's being provided and clean. And yeah, that's these long days, but I was used to long days. I just got to look after myself. And I thought, this is so like easy in comparison to the things that I'm used to juggling, you know. And that's what I think I realised. My learn was, and there was loads of hard lessons as well, but my learn was, oh wow, I'm really made very resiliently, more than I actually realised that I was. Because if you're going to be tested, it's in a process like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see it on the TV, you and everyone else on those programs gets thoroughly tested.
Yeah.
There's almost something philosophical in what you're talking about there, which is that, all of the good things that can come out of the work we do and the lives that we have
100%.
have that backdrop of maybe some negative things that create the person that makes the positive things possible.
Got to.
Yeah.
I've really realised that when I'm doing my speaking.
Yeah.
I've realised I don't want anything bad to happen to anyone, but there is a story. There has to be a story. If you look at the story in the fabric of your life, if it's just positive like that, quite honestly, or just like that, you're probably in a very comfortable zone. It's probably comfortable. It's too comfortable maybe, but you need to have the bad things happen or the learns happen or you fail at certain things, small things and big things. All of them things have to be welcomed as well, because that's part of the story, and that is what shapes you. That's what shapes you as a human being. And, the human experience is sticky and it's messy and it's amazing and it's wonderful and it's loving and it's awful. It's all of those things. We are human beings. Yes. And that's the difference between AI and us, isn't it? As it stands anyway. So,
for now. We'll see what it's like in 6 months' time. But,
6 weeks.
You're right, and you put it so well there. I've got one more question about The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Because it's a very individualistic kind of show, and it's looking for an apprentice, and that's going to kind of make everybody work for themselves. But there are elements to it where you've got to work as a team, and that's very true in the work that we do in business. It's the relations between people that make great things happen. What did you learn about working with other people through doing that show, where there's really only one prize and one of you is going to win, but the way to get there is through cooperation? That's an unusual one. What did you learn?
Yeah, it is. I learned a few things. So I learned that people sort of do have issue. Like, everybody's got their own things they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own things they're dealing with. And I think when you start to understand that, you're able to connect. And that's where I try and come in with some of my walls down now. I'm quite open, because it enables you to connect at a different level very, very quickly. And I saw that, and I noticed that on the show, and I saw that I was able to do that and other people were able to do that. And those were the strong relationships, Yeah. I also feel if you're just thinking about yourself in business and in life in general, it's very hard to succeed, But actually, if you think about, yourself, there has to be an element of that, but you're trying to bring people with you and you're thinking about how it impacts others as well, then as a collective, there is a win there. And I saw that task upon task actually in The Apprentice, but I've seen it in business as well.
Yes. Yeah. And did you see different levels of readiness to engage on that kind of more connected level? And I saw also, everyone's got different tactics at play. So you're there, but you've also got other people with different tactics, But something I really noticed about myself was that a lot of people can be quite, in the show and maybe in general, but quite like chummy, quite pally. I don't have that desire in me. I'm very happy to sort of stand alone. So I'll be polite, I'll be nice. If you talk to me, I'm happy to have a chat with you, but I don't feel I need to be your friend, And actually, I think there's a strength in that, because I'm comfortable being on my own, Maybe that's a trust thing as well. Yeah. It's actually where I found a learn for me is letting people in and getting close. That has been more the learn for me. Yeah. But that's probably my background as well. Well, you said before the show, you would have really not been spending time with people outside of a very small community of families. So that was a big shift, and one that I guess has carried on and only grown, because if Harper Fox was a startup before The Apprentice, it's not anymore. No. And you've really taken it forward, Scarlett, and built something great. And you talk about launching and building an ED&I business. Yeah. And I think we've already heard a lot about the kind of the driving force and the reasons for that. On every level, there've been personal elements and very authentic reasons for doing that. What do you see now in terms of, you're in that position where it's executive search, you're looking for leaders, the leaders of the future very often, who are going to create the world that, the next generation are living in. How do you think about the kind of leadership that we need in business today?
I feel it is all about connection. I genuinely do. I think it's how does the individual get the people, motivate the people to go and walk with us, to walk with the leader. And often that's from respect. I think it's from compassionate connection. I really do believe that. And I personally really believe it's about authenticity. Mm-hmm. And I want to say this, and I want to caveat that. Maybe you don't need to bring your whole full self to work. And we might need to know everything about you. That might not be appropriate or might not be what you want to do. That's okay. But it's about being genuine and authentic. And I've seen that turn, and I really feel that is the way forwards.
Mm-hmm. With that, does that bring the need for some vulnerability as well?
I believe so. I believe so. And maybe that vulnerability is sharing something personal, which again may or may not be appropriate or what people want to do. But that actually might be vulnerability around feedback. Mm-hmm. That might be vulnerability around your own ideas and strategic plan, and actually really saying, this is what I believe we should do. What are your thoughts? How can you contribute to this? And being open to that. Because I've also come, and I'm sure you have as well, come from places where this is what it is and this is what I said, right? And I think them days have gone.
Yeah, I think those days have gone, and it's a learning experience. And if I look back to my own way of leading in the past, I'd have been just as guilty as the next person of saying, right, here I am with my confident plan, and we're all going to do this, and we're all going to be successful, and not actually betraying that I know real certainty to that, and creates more stress for the individual doing that, and this was my experience, and a lot less buy-in from other people.
And ego, maybe? Is ego part of that? I don't know.
Of course it is, yeah. Ego's a big part of it, and, we all have things that happen, I hope, opportunities in life which start to help us kind of dial down the ego. We have realizations, and so that's part of the interesting thing, isn't it? Not everybody is in the same mindset to be more vulnerable, to be open to a connection as others. And actually the way leadership's often role modeled in the world at the moment, vulnerability is seen as a bad thing, isn't it still?
Yeah, I don't believe that. I think vulnerability is the root and the heart to kind of everything, actually, and opening up everything. Even looking at the vulnerable parts of the business, we just call them risks. So it's, it's all of those kind of conversations. But, there is a balance of that, and I understand that as well. Yeah, of course. And so we were talking about this a little bit before we got to recording. You take a word like inclusion at the moment, it's become a bit of a buzzword, which then makes it actually harder to get to the essence of what you're trying to communicate and what you're trying to promote. How do you think leaders should engage with ED&I given that difficulty? I think authentically.
Yeah.
Authentically. There are so many environments that I'm in that talk about EDI and talk about inclusion, and there's no real interest in those areas. And for others, the opposite is true. But I actually, and it goes back to how we were just talking about leadership, and that's really important. It's how do we create a sense of belonging? Well, the only way we can do that is maybe to understand other people's stories, all right? And we never walk, goes back to the fabric of the skin. You're never going to necessarily be inside their skin and really understand it, but there's an element of understanding by just having the conversations. And in doing so, it makes you think and check yourself. I have to check myself on many occasions as well. I come from a very working class background. I might be around in rooms where people are really well spoken. I've had to check my bias, and I'm judging them. I've no idea on their background and their experiences, and I'm just assuming, they've had a different experience to me. So it goes both ways in all different ways. It really, really does. But I think the true sort of belonging, or the ED&I and inclusion piece, comes from understanding, and that is in understanding your people. Yeah,
I think there's a lesson for everybody in what you just said, and so there's the understanding there, and then I believe that there are some definite kind of old-fashioned bottom line benefits to having a more diverse workforce where you bring different ways of thinking to the conversation, especially as the world's getting more complicated. The problems are harder to solve, right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, you need those different voices and those different perspectives. That's what's important. Different perspectives, and in bringing so you bring in different schools of thought, and you bring in different solutions, and that's what business is. I don't know if you find it. It's constantly working out what's the next solution? What's the next solution?
Yeah.
How do I overcome this problem? Because there's constant problems. And if you enjoy that, you'll be very successful in business.
Yeah.
And that's where you need lots of different solutions and ideas at the table. Yeah. And that comes back down to the workforce.
Yeah. And it seems like the sort of thing that's so easy for people to get their heads around, let's say in a sporting scenario where you say, this team's got a special sprint coach, this football team's got a special sprinting coach who's an ex-athlete, and, you know, they've got a kicking coach who's come from American football or something. And yet you try and bring that into business. People go, oh, well, they haven't worked in my sector before.
Yeah, that is absolutely a wonderful example. Yeah. And it's the truth. It's like, they haven't worked in your sector before, but they've done something mighty amazing over there in a different sector that actually, why on earth aren't we thinking about that in this sector?
Yeah. So where you are now, Scarlett, I mean, you've worked with lots and lots of leaders, both publicly and behind the scenes. What have you learned about leadership from those mentors that you've been working with?
The first word that popped into my mind as you were asking that question was brave. Mm-hmm. It's very brave to lead anything, actually, to stand up and be a leader of a business, to lead the project at work, to lead, organising the podcast. Quite honestly, it's brave. And for that reason, that I have full respect for anyone that's stepping into any sort of leadership type role. And I think it favours the brave. So what have I learnt about leadership as a whole? It's a big question. It's a big question, but you've definitely got to be a people person. You've got to be really interested in your people, because in being interested in your people and getting the best out of your people, you will then have a successful business. It is all about the people as well as the business opportunity.
And what would you say to those people who are attracted to leadership because they like the power side of it? And they like being in charge, but maybe don't like the people so much and don't worry about the things they're talking about.
I would say they're not my kind of leaders, but what I will say is that if we look at some of the most successful businesses in the world and some of the most successful political powers, the reality is they are exactly that. They are interested in power and they are interested in control. And I think that will always be an element of leadership and leaders as well. There is a truth to that, you know. And you look at the psychology around it, there really, really is. It's not my kind of leader though.
No.
And you will find your people.
Yeah.
So...
And perhaps those kind of leaders are, if what they're seeking is power for themselves and their own outcomes, then they're not going to be getting the best for everybody else. And so there's a bit of a responsibility for the other leaders to show what good looks like.
Be even better. Yeah. I totally agree. Be even better.
Yeah. So you've talked about how... What was the word you used at the start? You're cheeky.
Yes.
And
I'm very cheeky.
answering the teacher back, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have a perspective on this. Maybe it's stuff we've sort of touched on a little bit. You know, what do you see as being broken in the systems that we've got today? If you were giving your cheeky feedback on the way the country's run and I'm not going to ask you to be political, by the way, but things that need a bit of a kick to make the changes in society that you're looking for.
That is a very big question. I actually think it does touch on some of the things we've talked about, which is collaboration and all looking at the same outcome. I feel like what can happen both politically and just in sort of societal landscape is everybody's looking at different outcomes. But what I can never understand is why can't we all work together to understand the best solution for this problem? How do we work together? There's so much, back and forth. The time, the energy and the money, quite honestly, is often spent in that back and forth rather than focusing on the best outcome for everybody. Yeah. So collaboration would really be the theme of it for me. How can we collaboratively focus on the end goal? What is the North Star and how can we collaboratively get there and get the best people's advice, support and wisdom, whatever sector they come from or whatever background they have, to come together and really understand that and drive it forwards?
I think that's a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you going to do it, Richard? Are you going to lead it, the change?
Well, I think we've all got to do our own little bit every day. Yeah. And it takes a whole community, doesn't it? Yeah. So Harper Fox is an exciting chapter that you're in the middle of right now.
Yeah.
What does success mean to you now versus what it meant to you earlier in life?
Do you know, I speak to my wonderful partner about this, wonderful partner. And I thought success, Harper Fox Partners has just had its 7th birthday. So that's very exciting. Thank you so much. And I thought success was completely revenue driven. And it is to some degree, actually, but completely revenue driven. It's this probably scarcity mindset that I've had constantly. How can I get the house? How can I make sure the girls are okay? How can I make sure the business is successful? And I'm starting to look at that and reframe that a little bit, actually. And there's an element of that. But I'm very interested in is how do we really make a positive impact? How do I make personally a positive impact on the communities around me? How do I do that? Is it less to some degree about the millions of revenue target that we've got? And is it more about the millions of lives that we'd like to inspire and impact as well?
Yes.
And I think it's a combination. And I'm really looking at that. And then the other element, and, I say this to my friends sometimes is, and you may be able to relate to this, the fatigued founder is very real.
Yes.
Being a founder, being, in senior positions in business, the long, long working days, the pressure that comes with is excessive. And there is a part of me more recently that's questioned how much am I also living? And success looks like to me probably at times, not always, but at times having a bit more of a better balance with my family versus everything constantly being about pouring into the business and the business goals and the business aims. So it's something that I'm looking at now. And I think that might come with a bit of maturity and as I'm getting a little bit older as well. And as my children are getting older.
Yeah.
You've got a near 18-year-old on your hands.
Yes.
You're all of a sudden thinking, okay, I kind of done that part then.
Yeah.
I know there's another part to come, of course, but okay, this is a different part now.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? What do you think? If you don't, do you mind me asking?
Okay, no, I'll give you my thoughts in no particular order. I'd sort of respond to you first, if that's all right. I think on that first bit about being all about revenue or all about purpose, and it's a blend of the two. And I think probably I learned some of this from our conversations, but the more there's purpose embedded in the fabric of what you're doing, actually the revenue can be accelerated by doing the right things. Kind of good things can happen for the business. We talk about it as companies having the right mission and the right values and, abstract it to the point of a few words that everyone's a bit bored of hearing now. Yeah. But the truth is, if you're doing something that kind of gets people's kind of energy going, then they're going to work harder for it and they're going to do more. There. And, and if that's contributing back to society, then it's bound to do that, isn't it?
Wholeheartedly agree. I actually think that's the way that the workplace is going.
Yeah.
I've seen candidates reject higher salaries because they're more embedded in the culture of a business or what the business is trying to achieve or is achieving, and it being that purpose-led or impactful work. I've seen that happen in my day-to-day.
Yeah, and I see that because, as you know, I'm in software. I've worked in software for a long time. The current software business is a clean tech one, and it's about decarbonisation, and we attract great people, real talent, who are really energized about the project that we're doing. And so you kind of see those things coming together a bit. I've been a chief executive for since quite a long time, not always in the same company, and grown businesses. And I have probably shifted in terms of what success is for me, which was probably quite command and control and sort of being in charge was nice for its own sake. This is personal success, being in charge and doing a good job of making the business a success, of course. Whereas now I get a lot more out of working with great people, helping other people reach their potential, feeling the strong, positive vibe you get in a room of people that are all pulling in the same direction and want the same things. And because, and this might just be an age thing,
maturity, emotional maturity as well.
Maturity.
I think that comes in. Yeah.
You kind of realise that the destination is just at one point in the future, but there's lots of other points that are happening right now. So make the most of those, and that's where the connection and I was chatting to somebody recently who said we all take ourselves far too seriously. Just have more fun with life. Yeah. And this was a very, very successful founder and businessman. Yeah. But the sort of the success came out of kind of having more fun with it. And in fact, one I shan't name them. Big, one of the world's biggest software companies, at the heart of their values, they've got something called putting fun in the middle.
We've got fun in life. Yeah. I totally agree with that. I totally agree. And something that my daughter said to me, my youngest daughter, the other day, she got her numbers confused. Yeah. So she meant to say, 2035, or imagine what it's going to be like in 2035, but she said 30, 25. And we both sat there and realised that's in 1,000 years. And then we both realised that not only will we have passed away, everybody we know would have too. Yeah. And you know what? It was it sounds a bit morbid, but it was a real moment of, you should definitely have an attitude of, I'm going to do it. Yeah. Or let's have fun whilst doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because actually,
we're all...
Here we are, let's do it. This is our opportunity.
Yeah, that's right.
It's our opportunity.
This is our opportunity.
So, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. And Scarlett, some of your work now is about public speaking and getting your message out to others, talking about your story and the work that you do. And when you're speaking to audiences, well, all over really, you do speak to young people. I'd love to hear what your message is to young people and people that want to make a difference and they don't know how to start.
The key message that I always say, probably because I'm still saying it to myself as well, is if you can't, you must. And I think I said this to you before. So if you feel that you can't, or it's not possible for you, or you're like, I'm not very good at that, then that's even more reason why you must do that. And it's the truth. And if that means that you become the best in the world at it, well, how fantastic, thank goodness you did it. Or if that means you realise, I'm not good at that, so I'm going to try this now and I'm going to do this next, and it's led to the next things, then how wonderful as well. So if you can't, you must.
And what do you say to someone maybe who comes from a difficult background themselves and hasn't had the opportunities and probably doubts whether they can break through?
That was me.
Yeah.
That was me. That is me. That is all around me. That's all I understand.
Yeah.
And I would say to you, I'm taking this quote from my partner as well, and he said it to me.
Yeah.
What makes you different is what makes you stand out. So really, really take your differences and make them stand out. And actually, I would challenge that person and say you have even more of a responsibility, because not only do you need to make those changes and you deserve to make those changes for you, there's so many others around you that are going to be impacted and positively impacted and inspired by what you're doing. So you have a responsibility to do it for you and for those around you as well.
So what you've been doing has become a real demonstration of success that those people can learn from.
Because then you believe you can do it.
Yeah.
If you think, she did it, well, she had that circumstance, gosh, it's not possible for me, I was that person.
Yeah.
And then you're like, no, I can do it. If she did it, of course I can do it. I'm going to do it even better.
Yeah.
How wonderful. How wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. So day to day then, being that change, being the agent of change, what does that look like?
Trying. I try. I'm just trying to be me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be me. And I go with my gut. I go with my gut on 99% of things, actually. And I kind of moved with that. And like I said, I really have strong faith as well. And for me, I just stand in the things that I feel really passionate about. And I almost feel like I can't not say it. And I think because I spent a lot of my life being silent and being quiet about things, I know what a luxury it is to use your voice. And there is such power in your voice. And I've seen it firsthand and I know it deep inside me. So I use my voice and I operate in the way that the things that I would like to see, the way that I would like to be treated, or what I needed maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. That's how I lead. And it will be for some people and not for others. And that's okay too, because you're not for everybody.
Yeah. Something deeply instinctive about taking the things that you know are right for you as a leader and doing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was having this conversation with somebody this morning about how the data and the analysis is important. And yes, it has a place in leadership and to make your decisions. But ultimately, if you have a bit of a feeling about something, don't ignore it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. That is your intuition. That is your gut. You know, you absolutely got to lean into that as well. And I'm all for the data too. I am. But there's an element of that, and it's really powerful and it's really important. Yeah. And again, that's what makes us the human being. It makes us the being in the human.
Yeah. And it raises all sorts of interesting questions about with artificial intelligence. And is that an opportunity for people to rely more on their intuition when some of the data and analytics work is now available, you know, on tap?
I think a combination of the two.
Yeah.
I'm the first person to be asking AI a question and asking it to challenge my thoughts around this, you know, or get advice on this. But I absolutely balance that with how I feel inside and what I feel is right. Because I know, and this is the most strongest thing I know now, if I fail, it's fine. It's only still bringing me a step closer.
Yes.
That I never thought to be the case. I know there's lots that can be counting on that sometimes. Business, shareholders, employees. So it's way easier said than done. But I know it's bringing me a step closer because my journey has taught me that.
Yes. And so then sort of on to you a bit more, Scarlett. And I was going to say, you know, well, they say it's lonely being at the top, and you carry so much for your business and for your family. How do you take care of yourself?
Yeah, I don't know, Richard. Do you know, that is something I need to work on more. Mm-hmm. It's something I need to work on more. Yeah, that is the truth. And I think because I can be on a runaway train of lots of different ideas, lots of different things I want to do. Yeah, lots of different things I want to do. Doing a lot of those things, quite honestly, trying to be the best or the best that I can possibly be, you know, really trying to execute with excellence all the time and everything is very exhausting. And the reality is that has meant that I think that I haven't always prioritized maybe what I need because I'm always thinking about others. So it's something that I'm thinking about now. I can't say I'm even actioning it completely, but it's something I'm thinking about and realising, and it's probably a deeper sort of rooted thing, but realising that I deserve to think about that for me and we deserve to consider ourselves properly as well and look after ourselves properly. That
sounds like the intuitive answer answering itself, which is that, you know, and maybe back to the emotional maturity stuff, which is you're reaching a point where, you know, the rocket ship keeps taking off, but it needs to refuel some way as well. And so right now, who do you go to, or what do you go to draw strength to kind of keep you going?
So faith, definitely faith, 100%. The conversations that I have in my head a lot as well. Absolutely my partner and my children as well. And I have, for the first time, I've gone from, you know, having a really, really small circle, and I'm still protective about who's in that circle, and I think that's important, to now I've been watering these friendships so much, you know, these different relationships in my life. I say now it's like the botanical gardens. I can't keep up. I'm like, oh my goodness. But there's so many wonderful people that you can have around you. And I didn't realise that to be the case. I'm only understanding that in very recent years now, that actually really important. Yeah, you surround yourself with the people that are doing great things. You know, they say, oh, you know, you're reflective of the 5 people closest to you and all of that. Yeah, okay. You want people that are doing great things and have got great ambition, but you want good people around you that want the best for you, that speak into you and you into them genuinely. And if not, then you know what? It's wonderful to stand on your own as well.
Yeah.
That's a better place than not having the right people around you. Yeah. So that has been my biggest learn, and that has been recent learn, and it has changed my whole life.
Cultivating connections and relationships with more people.
Yeah.
That's a message in a backdrop of a world where we talk about digital disconnection and people being more isolated because they've got, you know, their heads in their devices all of the time. So that's a really wonderful thing that you're doing.
Yeah. It's new. It's really new territory for me. It feels uncomfortable sometimes. I go and speak. I have an amazing opportunity speaking on a podcast with you today. I do all of these things, but there's a very strong entrepreneurship, introverted side to me. And I almost feel like I have to recoup. And then I get ready to speak to people again. So I've learned that about myself, and I've learned that that's okay as well, you know, but there is, and it's that in that connection and having those people around you that inspire you, and hopefully vice versa, and speaking to you and again vice versa, is life-changing. And that isn't always your family. That's not always coming from the places that you may have wanted it to or you hoped it would have. It is often in us finding and cultivating those friendships and relationships around us. So yeah, a big learn for me, but a life-changing one.
And an easy, on one level easy, I suppose, takeaway for leadership as well. Cultivate those relationships, develop trust with people, and share the load of what you're doing.
Yeah, water your people.
Yeah. And so, looking ahead now, Scarlett, what are you excited about? What's next or on the horizon for you?
So, in so many different areas, Richard. So looking ahead, I'm really, really excited to continue to blend my family and grow in that way. That's like my number one priority, really, and the children. To continue to renovate the house.
Yes.
It's been this big vision project that I was showing you.
Well, it's well on the way, isn't it?
It's on the way. We're trying to find the windows. And that's another example. I'm like, I've got this vision and I'm going to do it. And, you know, I'm going to get there and we're going to do it. And that's kind of been a physical foundation of building, actually. You know, we've moved house a lot. So it's really important to me that there's this home now. And it's like a family home as well. So I'm really excited about that. And that's a journey. And it's been quite the pressurized journey, let me tell you, and I'm very much still on it. And then business-wise is to continue to really impact and positively impact my team, actually. And that's something that I don't think we always talk about. And I always say to my team, you know, we built the business, which is wonderful, but we don't just work for the business, we want the business to work for us. So it's really important that the business that we put our wonderful hearts and souls into and time into really works for my team as well. You know, that is my number one, actually, in terms of the business, outside of the revenue. And we want to do this with this client and we want to do that. Yeah, that's absolutely wonderful. That's what drives me. But my team, really seeing the benefits of that is crucial to me as well as.
And what would the business working for your team look like when they're kind of living in that?
So enjoying what they're doing, being challenged, having the flexibility to live their lives as well, and financial reward.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's getting all of those balances.
Impact and all of those things,
Bringing some of the balance that you were unable to experience in your early working life.
We have the most flexible working environment, you know, we ever did pre-pandemic, I'd like to say as well, you know. And it's a team that probably works the most hours. You know, we work really hard and it's because of that. Because there's a trust there, it hasn't been broken. There's the flexibility then on the back of it, you know, and we do great work and we care about what we do. And that's so, so important, you know. You want to do meaningful work, don't you?
It brings me to my last question. So if someone was listening to this podcast in 5 years' time, what was the message you'd want them to take away from this conversation?
I'll be intrigued to see what our thoughts are in 5 years' time. Hopefully I've got windows in the house then, Richard. We might be recording in the house now.
That's right.
My journey so far has led me to this point, and it would be to be you. So be you in every sense of whatever that means. So if that isn't fashionable or it is liked or it isn't liked, to be you very unapologetically. Yeah, it would be that. So whether that's 5 years ago or in 5 years' time, it would be try to keep understanding who you are, the core of who you are, and really standing in that.
Be you.
Be you. Yeah, be you.
It's a simple but important point. And I've really enjoyed the conversation, Scarlett.
Me too. Always. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thanks for listening to the Whole Leader podcast. I hope today's conversation gave you something to reflect on, whether in how you lead, how you create, or how you show up. If you found this valuable, feel free to share it and subscribe for more episodes. And if you'd like to keep the dialogue going, you'll find more at richards.blog or connect with me on LinkedIn. Until next time, stay present, stay curious, and keep leading from the whole of who you are.